This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We have the great meeting between Yosef HaTzadik and Yehudah. Vayigash Yehudah. Yehudah comes to Yosef. You have the two brothers, the two kings, as the Medrash puts it, standing right opposite each other, looking each other in the eye. And Yosef says, I want to have a few words with you, sir. He says, Bi Adoini, please. Yedaber na avdecha davar ba'aznei Adoini. I want to speak words in your ear. V'yal yichar abcha b'yavdecha. Don't get angry at me. Ki kamoicha kefarai. The three magic words. Ki kamoicha kefarai. Who is like you? Paro. And the question is, the $1 million question is, what is Yehudah telling Yosef? Who is like you, like Paro? Is he complimenting him? Is he criticizing him? Is he threatening him? What's he telling him? Ki kamocha kaparo. Who is like you, like Paro? Okay, very important Rashi. Says Rashi, if you look at number 1, Chashuv ata be'enai kamelech. You know what Yosef was telling Yehudah? You know what Yehudah was telling Yosef? You are important in my eyes like a king. Zehu pshuta. This is a simple interpretation of the pasuk. You know what Yosef was telling Paro? Paro, I want you to know, Yosef, I want you to know, you are very important in my eyes. You are distinguished in my eyes. I consider you very important. You're a chashuv guy. You're an important person. To me, you're like Paro. Ki kamocha kaparo. This is a simple interpretation of the pasuk. In other words, what is Yehudah telling Yosef? You're a great guy, Yosef, right? That's what Yehudah tells Yosef. He's complimenting him. Yehudah is giving Yosef, he's buttering him up, he's flattering him. Right? You speak to a king, official, right? You gotta butter them up, you gotta flatter them. This is a simple interpretation that Yehudah is flattering Yosef. Says Rashi, Umid Rasho. Now let me tell you the midrashic interpretation of this pasuk. Soifcha lilkois olav bitzaras. You, Yosef, you are going to get it. You are going to get stricken with leprosy, kemo shalaka Paro, just like Paro was stricken. Right? Do you remember what happened to Paro? Remember when Paro held Sarah hostage for one night? It was bad news for Paro. Remember what happened to him? All his bodily orifices were clogged up. All the holes in his body got sealed up. It was bad news. You know? If the holes are closed, it's not going to be comfortable. Right? Put it that way. It's not going to be comfortable. Right. That bracha will not be said. Yeah. You did, right? So what Yehudah was telling Yosef was, you're going to get punished just like Paro. My grandmother Sarah, when Paro kept her for one night, what happened to Paro? Hashem took care of him. You're going to keep Binyamin for one extra day, God will take care of you. In other words, you're like Paro. God will strike you down just like He struck down Paro. So far we have two pshatim. The first explanation is, you're a great guy like Paro. You're important like Paro. You're prestigious like Paro. That's the first explanation. The second explanation is, you're going to get it like Paro got it. The third explanation. Okay, the first explanation again was a compliment. The second explanation was a threat. Now the third explanation, criticism. Davar acher, ma Paro goyzer ve'eno makayim. Just like Paro decrees and he does not fulfill, mavtiach ve'eno osa, he promises he doesn't keep his word, af ataken, you're the same way. You're the same way. And what does that mean? What is Paro? Paro made a law. The law of the land is, you can't be a king if you're a slave. And look, Paro made you, Yosef, the king. Paro doesn't keep his word, and you don't keep your word either. Because you said, bring your brother down, I just want to take a look at him. And now you're putting him in jail? This is what you meant, that I just want to take a look at him? So you don't keep your word like Paro doesn't keep his word. Okay, so listen to this. The first explanation is, you're wonderful like Paro. Second explanation is, you're going to get it like Paro got it. Third explanation is, you're a bum like Paro's a bum. What's the fourth explanation? Davar acher, ki kamocha kaparo. Who is like you, Paro? If you mess with me, I will kill you and Paro. So a major threat. Im takniteni, if you harass me, if you aggravate me, aharo goscha be'es adonecha, I will kill you and your master. And what Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky is going to question on this Rashi is that, can you have four explanations that are more diametrically opposed, more in contradistinction than these four explanations that Rashi gives? What, right here, right? You be Paro, you'll be Yosef, I'll be Yehudah. Okay? Yosef, who is like you like Paro? Okay, I said three words. Now the question is, what do I mean? So one explanation is, I'm flattering you. One explanation is, I'm complimenting you. One explanation is, I'm threatening you. One explanation is, I'm criticizing you. I mean, usually you have different interpretations, but they're not contradicting each other. Here, some Chachamim say the simple explanation is he was complimenting him. The Midrashic explanation is he's trying to threaten to kill him. Another explanation is he was criticizing him. I mean, it's very, very strange to have these different explanations, and they contradict each other, and they just don't fit together. It's just so different. It's like Rachok Mizrach Mimarav. It's like east as far apart as east is from west. That's how far apart these explanations are. Another very interesting thing, and what we're going to learn tonight, is a very fundamental insight into Torah, learning Chumash, and into human nature. And perhaps, more importantly even, a very interesting insight into human nature. Okay. There's a man named Lot. Remember Lot? Right? Who's Lot? Lot is Abraham's nephew. And Lot, he's living with Abraham, and then he decides to move towards Sodom. Why? Why does he go towards Sodom? If you look in Parshas Lech Lecha, basically the Chumash says explicitly, Lot was looking for greener pastures. He saw Sodom. It was Kegan Hashem. It was like the garden of God. It was beautiful, luscious gardens, waterfalls, plants, trees. That's what the Torah says. Lot wanted to move out to the island. Yeah, right? That's what it said, right? He wanted to go to a less cramped area. He wanted to go to a less cramped area. Switzerland. Yes, Switzerland. Thank you. And that's what the Torah says. If you look on page 60, Pasuk Yud, Vayisa Lot es Einav, Lot looks up and he sees the area of the Yarden, it's all irrigated, and Lot wants to go there. Says Rashi, wait a second. Rashi quotes, if you look at number 3, Rashi quotes an Agadic interpretation of what's going on. Says Rashi, you know where Lot was going? You know why Lot was going? Lot wasn't going because he liked the landscape. Lot liked the nashim over there. He liked the ladies over there. He was stooped in immorality. That's why he wanted to go. He wanted to live life like a bachelor, right? Like a free man. Exactly.
Like he said, I like it a lot.
He likes it, yeah.
A lot.
Medrash Haggadah, Rashi says, Darsha Lagnai. The Medrash explains this for the disparagement of Lot. Al Shahayu Shtufei Zima. That area was an area where they were low in matters of immorality. So even though the Chumash says, why was Lot going? He wanted a big backyard for the kids, right? He wanted a big land. No, says the Chachamim, that's not why he was going. You know why he was going? He was going because he was stooped in immorality. And again, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky asks, that ain't what the Chumash says. The Chumash says that he was going for greener pastures. Why do Chazal, what are they digging here? And saying, no, it's not like the Chumash, even though the Chumash says he was going because he liked the landscape, that's not really why he went. How do they know? That's not what it says in the Pasuk. The Pasuk says he went because he liked the land. How do the Chachamim know he went because he liked the Znus, he liked the immorality? Another example of this. In Parshas Bahaloscha, after the Torah was given, the Jews got together and they were crying. What were they crying about? So if you look in Parshas Bahaloscha, it says very clearly what they were crying about. They're crying about the mun. Right? We always learned in kindergarten, right? The mun, it's the best thing in the world. You know, you take this thing, you want it to taste like sirloin steak, it tastes like sirloin. You want it to taste like eggplant, right? Whatever you want. You want it to taste like cholent, hummus, whatever foods you like. You just imagine it tastes like that. Wow. The mun, my friends, was torturous. Why? Because I don't care. The man was a cube. I don't care what the food tastes like. If it looks like a gray cube, right? Imagine you are here, take this. Don't worry, it tastes delicious. Just think whatever you want. And every day, 3 times a day, the same looking food with no smell. Disgusting. A person, after 3 days, he would literally go insane. Because it could taste food. Food is not just the taste. It's the way it looks. It's the texture. And the Torah says openly, the man was a torture. And it was very difficult for Klal Yisrael to handle. And they were crying over the food. They started to say, oh, we remember the fish in Egypt, the cucumbers and the onions and all the other things that they have, all the other green stuff. And that's what the Chumash says. They were crying over the food. Says the Chachamim, what? Says the Chachamim, they bring a medrash in number 5. Rashi says, you know why they were crying? They weren't crying over the food. They were crying because the Torah was given. And now that the Torah was given, you can't live with your relatives anymore. You can't marry your relative. You can't marry your aunt, your sister. And this was something the Jews did before the Torah was given, right? Amram, Moshe's father, married his aunt. People would marry relatives. And now this was off limits. And this was sad for Bnei Yisrael. So really, they weren't crying over the food. Again, they were crying over the arayos. Where did the Chachamim get this from? That's not what the Chumash says. The Chumash says they were crying over the food. It doesn't say they were crying over the arayos. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, a major insight into Torah and to human nature. I'll give you an example. I feel I should turn off the tape. Okay? You go to sleep, you're very tired. Yeah? You're lying in bed, you're about to fall asleep. Did you take out the garbage yet? Take out the garbage? What? Did you take out the garbage? I told you to take out the garbage. Could you take out the garbage? Sure. Okay? Right? You say sure. What do you mean when you say sure? You mean a lot of things. There are a lot of layers of meaning to that. Sure, the simple meaning is, I'm going to do it. Sure. Sure. Are you kidding me? You're asking me to take out the garbage when I'm half asleep? You got to be kidding me.
Are you sure?
Are you sure? Yeah. That level of meaning, you probably are aware of. Now I'm going to tell you layers of meaning that you may not even be aware of. You're asking me to take out the garbage now? You better remember this. Because next time I ask you something, and you don't want to do it, just remember that this time that you asked me to do, right? Now, are you going to be aware of it? Probably this level you may not even be aware of. And beyond this, there are many, many layers of meaning that the person himself is not aware of when he talks. What do I mean by this? Every pasuk in Chumash has pardes. What's pardes? There's pshat, there's a simple meaning. There's the remez, the hints. There's the drush, the agadic interpretation. And the sod, the secrets. There are many layers of meaning. The same way the Torah has many layers of meaning, a human being has many layers of meaning. When people talk, they mean many, many things in what they say. They mean many things that they are aware of, and they mean many things that they're not even aware of. How could somebody say something and not even be aware of what they mean? I'll tell you the following. I ask you, I call you up, it's tonight, 11:30. Can you do me a favor? I need a ride somewhere. Could you drive me? Okay? You're half asleep. What's going through your head when you get this phone call and your friend asks you to do him a favor? You know what's going through your head? About 1 million different things. Because every human being has many forces working within them. Right? You have a force of compassion. You have a force of kindness. You have a force of empathy.
Regret.
You also have a force of laziness, arrogance, stubbornness, anger. And each of these forces works simultaneously. So when I ask you, do me a favor, it's 11:30, I really need a favor, please drive me here and there. What's going on in your mind? Yeah, I'll tell you. Your force of compassion says, oh, this guy really needs a favor, please help him. Your force of kindness says, you know what? I feel good when I help someone else, I should really help him. Your force of empathy says, you know, he must be going through a tough time, I want to help him out. Your force of anger says, he has the audacity to call me 11:30 at night. Your force of arrogance says, how dare he disturb my peace of mind? Your force of Laziness says, I'm so tired, I can't do this right now. So these are all different forces going on with you in the same time. It's like different dayanim, judges in a court, who have to make a decision what to do in this scenario. And ultimately, all the forces come together, and hopefully the decision will be yes, or, to do the right thing. So it's like when, the same way you present a case to a court, and especially a Jewish court of 70 dayanim, 70 judges. So what's going to happen when you present the court case to them? 38 will say this, 22 will say this, and the outcome will be decided. Same thing with the human being. When you have to make a decision, all the various forces within you are working and thinking about what to do, and they all offer their opinion. And whoever speaks louder, and whoever has more support from other forces, that's what the outcome is going to be. When Yehudah says to Yosef, who is like you, like Paro? What did he mean? He meant many different things. It depends what part of him was talking. You could say one word, and each element working within you has a different meaning in what you're trying to say. 99% of the time, you're not aware of most of the workings that are going on within you, because it's hard for a person to isolate. This is directing me in this way. This is pulling me in this direction. That's pulling me in that direction. Most of the time, we can't isolate it. Most of the time, we're just aware of, this is the decision, and this is what I want. But Chazal, the Chachamim of the Gemara, with their Ruach HaKodesh, and with their penetrating analysis, they could look at you, or me, or someone, they could hear the words they're saying, and they could say, he's saying this, he's saying that, he's saying that, and he's saying that. Because the same way the Torah has many levels of understanding, a person has many levels of understanding. Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, there's no contradiction. What was Yosef telling Yehudah? What was Yehudah telling Yosef? Yosef, I honor you like Paro. That was certainly the simple meaning. That's the open meaning. There's no this. That is the message. When you talk to a king, you don't have the audacity to say, I'm going to kill you and Paro. No one would ever say that openly. And Yehudah never said that. He just said 3 words. To me, you're like Paro. What did he mean? You know what he meant? He meant simply, maybe what he was conscious of, maybe what Yosef was immediately conscious of, I honor you like Paro. But there are other messages being given also at the same time. Yehudah may have been aware of them. Yehudah may not have been aware of them. 1 second. Well, you know what other message he was giving? I honor you like Paro. But you better watch out. You better watch out, because you're going to be stricken down. You're going to be punished like Paro was punished. Did Yehudah saying that openly? No. But subconsciously, this message was also being said. And subconsciously, the message of, I'll kill you and Paro if you don't stop with me. Openly, that's not what he was saying. That's not the simple meaning. That's not what the overall message was. But there was something working in Yehudah that Chazal were able to detect and probe, dig deeper, and uncover. This was also what Yehudah was saying. And you know what else Yehudah was saying? You're a bum like Paro. These are all things that Yehudah was saying. I'll give you a very good illustration on this in a minute. Yeah?
What I was going to say is, number one, Yosef understood what he was saying, even though Yehudah didn't know that he understood.
I mean the words.
Right, because he was speaking in probably some version of Hebrew, and supposedly Yosef didn't know it. That's why he had his son acting as an interpreter. And very often when we talk, while we may control ourselves inside, the bottom line is the way we say something very fast like a New Yorker, or we say something very slow like a Southerner, it has an impact also over and above the words.
Right, it's the tone, the intonation, the tune, the niggin. Yes.
It was also the way Yosef heard. He understood it.
And it could be Yosef understood some things openly, and then it's like you ever hear somebody makes a comment to you. Oh, yeah, you take it a certain way. And then you think about it. What did he mean? Did he mean this? Did he mean that? And the answer is, he meant all of the above. He may not have been aware he meant all of the above, but because there's so many forces going on within you, each force is contributing in a different way. I'll give you a perfect example. Is there a way to turn off this thing for 1 minute? No, it's not. Okay.
Hidden messages, though. Okay, you know?
Well, good. Hidden intonations, hidden messages.
Yeah, but over here we have
what
an
it is, subliminal messages.
Wound between the brothers, and it wasn't really healed yet.
Yeah.
So when he come to him as an envy, because he knows Safnat Pa'anach, like he knows that he fixed the whole economy in Egypt, and everybody is like surrounding them, try to take the food from them, and how he managed to do it. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's not only just he's a king or whatever, he is a Superman. He's literally Superman. And he's his brother.
He's controlling the economy of Egypt. He's controlling world economy.
Absolutely.
And they respect. So on the one hand, they respected him. On the other hand, they're criticizing him. On the other hand, they're threatening him. And these are all true. Now let me develop this a little bit more.
How come a pretty boy like you that we sold became who you are? That was the message.
Let me develop this a little bit more. You find.
They didn't know it was Yosef at that time.
Yeah, he told them.
You find that when Lot. Why does the Chumash say Lot went to Sodom? Greener pastures, right? That's the obvious reason why he went, right? That would be the party line answer. If you would ask Lot, excuse me, we're here from the Ated Naaman and we're here to interview you. Why did you go to Sodom, Lot? So Lot would say, because of greener pastures. It's a nicer place to live. But Chazal see deeper than that. Chazal see not the conscious of Lot, the subconscious of Lot. And Chazal say, there's no way in a million years this guy is going to leave Abraham Avinu, who's a Gadol Hadar, and how God's presence is with Abraham. And if you're with Abraham, your life is much better, and how God is making Abraham successful and anyone associated with Abraham successful. And you're telling me you're going there because the flowers are prettier in Sodom? Chazal say that may be what you think why you're going, but we see deeper than that. We see the subconscious reason that you, Lord, are probably not even aware of. You're going because you want to be lewd. You want to be immoral. Or Chazal see that the Bnei Yisrael are crying. The open reason is, Hashem, we don't have what to eat. But Chazal say, no. That's not why the Bnei Yisrael are crying, because they don't have what to eat. These are people who just saw God's presence on Har Sinai. There has to be something else tugging on their heart and making them upset. You know what that is? The fact that these new relationships are prohibited. In other words, what we're learning is that when you're talking to someone, or you're talking yourself, or you're doing something, you could do it for a reason, you could say it for a reason, but there are many reasons why you do it. Reasons you're aware of, reasons you're not aware of. When you speak to someone and you say something, what do you mean? You could mean countless things. Now I found something very, very interesting from the Vilna Gaon. And that is, exactly how many forces are working within a person? How many different things do we, how many different things that are pulling on us? We have a force of kindness, we have a force of anger, we have a force of laziness. How many different forces? The Vilna Gaon writes, there are 70 forces that work within a person. 70 forces. By the way, it's amazing how many interpretations of Torah are there. Shivim Panim LaTorah. There's 70 interpretations of Torah. The same way a pasuk has 70 layers of meaning. If you were a super psychoanalyst, if you were able to psychoanalyze someone with pure Torah knowledge, and you would see them do something, you would be able to say 70 different feelings and motivations and meanings this person is doing. Because, like we said, the same way when the Sanhedrin makes a decision, all the Dayanim, all the judges have to decide. When we make a decision, all 70 forces are offering their opinion. Laziness is saying, stay where you are. Kindness is saying, go help him. Anger is saying, get off my back. Arrogance is saying, I ain't budging, right? All these forces are issuing their opinion. And somebody, God, who's able to detect and go into the recesses of our heart, is able to know exactly who's saying what and who's pulling in what direction. That's how you could find one action, and in the view of the Torah, you have 10 pshatim in the Gemara, 5 pshatim in the Midrashim, 6 pshatim in the Rashi. Why? They're all true. They're all true. They're just bringing out a different dimension of what's happening. Okay. Now, I just want to steer this in a little bit of a different direction. The Vilna Gaon says there are 70 forces working within a person. If you want to know what they are, you can look at number 11. They're here, they're quoted on the sheet. They're quoted on the sheet.
That's why I was saying, when people see an incident, no one sees it the exact same way. Everyone is different. It could be a simple thing. Everyone has different versions.
Everyone has different... I just want to point out one other example of this idea. Do you remember when Yaakov Avinu comes to Esav and he says, al kein ra'isi panecha k'ra'is pnei Elokim b'tertzeni. Esav, I'm so happy to see you. When I see you, it's like seeing an angel. What did Yaakov mean? Says Rashi, you know what he meant? He meant, Esav, please accept my gift. You're so chashuv in my eyes, it's as if I'm seeing an angel. And then Rashi says, why is Yaakov telling Esav that Yaakov sees angels? He's trying to scare Esav, and he's trying to tell Esav, Esav, you know who I saw yesterday? I saw your angel. You know what I did to your angel? I killed him. And if I could kill your angel, I could kill you too. So wait a second. On the one hand, Yaakov is telling Esav, you're a great guy. To me, you're like an angel. He's praising him. He's buttering him up. And on the other hand, he's threatening him, and he's scaring him. I saw your angel, and just like I killed your angel, I could kill you. The answer is yeah, he's doing both. These are both true. Because people are not just one-layered. We're not just one-layered. We're multi-layered. We're so many layers. So many layers. Okay. Now we're going to do something very interesting. Vilna Gaon says, ready? We're going to do it quick. Vilna Gaon says there's 70 forces that work within a person. Says the Vilna Gaon, I'm going to tell you something very interesting about the number 70. By the way, just a brief introduction. There's a very interesting sefer called Eitzos v'Hadrachos. Advice and Direction. It's written by, he's a big tzaddik. He used to live in Muncie, now he lives in Eretz Yisrael, a Rabbi Greenwald, who is I believe a psychologist. And he deals with certain issues that plague the frum religious community, certain mental illness, specifically OCD. And it's if you know that, obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's something that is very affects the frum community, because when people get nervous about things, it expresses themselves in religious ritual. And he discussed these areas with the Stipler. Rabbi Yaakov Yisrael Kanievsky, one of the Gedolei Hadar, and the Stipler wrote to him many different advice to give to people who suffer, unfortunately, from these type of illness. And in the back of this sefer, he wrote a kuntras, a small compilation on the 70 forces that work within a person. Okay, so this is where this information is from. And the Gra says something very interesting. Gra says, let me tell you something interesting about the number 70. Whenever you have the number 70, besides the 70, you always have 2 that are at the head, and then branch out to another 70. In other words, besides the 70, there are always 2 headings. What do I mean, says the Gra? Even the 70 forces within a man, says the Vilna Gaon, but there are 2 main ones that head the list. What are they? The Vilna Gaon says the intellectual thought process and intelligent action. Whatever that means. But that's the concept the Vilna Gaon says. Whenever you have the number 70, it's headed by 2. Other examples of this, the Vilna Gaon says, are, Vilna Gaon writes in his commentary on Shir HaShirim, if you want to see in number 17, Vilna Gaon says, right, remember we mentioned earlier, how many Perushim are there for Torah? Shivim Panim LaTorah. 70 excellent. But they are also headed by 2 headings, and they are the first 2 of the 10 commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, which is the heading for all positive commandments, and Lo Yeh Lecha Elokim Achem, don't have other gods, that's the heading for the negative commandments. Because whenever you have the number 70, there's always 2 on top of it. And the Vilna Gaon says, why is that? Because the letter 70 is which letter in Hebrew? Ayin. And ayin means eyes. So besides the 70, you have the 2 eyes on top. Okay. For instance, says the Vilna Gaon, he said, this the Vilna Gaon says in his commentary on the Zohar, it's quoted in the Sefer, that how many tzaddikim are there? There's a concept of how many tzaddikim? Lamed Vav tzaddikim, 36 tzaddikim. But it says the Vilna Gaon, 36 in Eretz Yisrael, 36 outside of Eretz Yisrael, a total of 72.
Are those hidden? The hidden ones?
Rabbi Yaakov Hillel says about the hidden tzaddikim. You know who the hidden tzaddikim are? The tzaddikim that everybody knows about. But what do you mean they're not hidden? Yeah, they are hidden. You think you know who they are. You think you know how great they are. You don't have any inkling. But a tzaddik that nobody knows about, there's a reason nobody knows about. That's what Yaakov Hillel says.
72 is all 72.
So 36 and 36 is 72, but you have the two heads, the two Gedolei Hadar, fine. The 70 Perushim LaTorah, but you have Anochi Hashem Lakacha, Lo Yeh Lecha Lekim Achem. Says the Vilna Gaon in his commentary to Shiur HaShirim. I'll give you other examples. How many nations are there? 70 nations. But it's headed by two nations, Edom and Yishma. Or, says the Vilna Gaon, how many members of the Sanhedrin are there? 70. But you have the Av Bezdin and you have the Nasi, the two at the top. That's all the Vilna Gaon says in his commentary to Shiur HaShirim. But in his introduction to the 70 kochos of man, he adds in one other illustration of this. Says the Vilna Gaon, it's the same thing with the 70 souls. Anybody know what are the 70 souls? Very good. The Shivim Nefashos that went down to Mitzrayim. Now let's turn to the end of this week's Parsha. The end of the Parsha tells us 70 Jews went down to Mitzrayim. Okay? But I want you, if you have a Chumash, it's worthwhile to see it inside. What's the breakup of these 70 souls? Okay? And bear with me, it's a little technical, but if you follow carefully, it'll be very rewarding. Look on page 258. 258.
250?
258. The pasuk says, these are the names of the children of Israel that came down to Mitzrayim. It lists first the children of Leah. How many children did Leah have?
4.
With her grandchildren, children and grandchildren. Look at the end of pasuk Tezvav. Shloshim v'shalosh, 33. Fine. Now it counts the children of Zilpah. How many children did Zilpah have in pasuk Yirches? 16. What's 33 and 16? 49. Then it counts the children of Rachel. How many? Children, grandchildren? 14. What's 49 and 14? 63. And now it counts the children of Bilhah. How many were the children and grandchildren of Bilhah? 7. Total of 70. 33 plus 16, 49, plus 14, 63, plus 7, 70. These are the 70 souls that came down to Mitzrayim. The problem is it's not so simple. Because now let's look at Pasuk Chaf Vav. Page 260, chapter Mem Vav. Mem Vav Chaf Vav. Kal hanefesh haba liYaakov Mitzrayim. All the souls that came down to Yaakov in Mitzrayim, Yotzei Yerecho, his descendants, Milavad Neshev Bnei Yaakov, besides his wives, Shisha Mashesh, 66. 66. But, you want to know how many in total were there? 70. 66 went down to Egypt, and when they got there, there were a total of 70. Now, I know how you get to 69, because when they got there, Yosef was there with his 2 sons. So that's another 3. The problem is, Rabbi say, there's a lost soul. We're missing someone. We're missing someone. Very good. Another question is, when it talks about the children of Leah, how many does it count? 33. But if you count them, they're only 32. So Ruvain is alluding to Rashi, and the Gemara in Baba Basra. What does Rashi say? That there is a child that is not counted because it didn't come down to Mitzrayim. It was born as they got to the wall of... She was Nolda Ben HaChomos. As they got to Egypt and they were, passing through customs, Yocheved was born. And she was the 70th one. In other words, she didn't come down to Mitzrayim, but by the time they got there, she's added to the Cheshbon. And she's the 33rd child of Leah that the Torah doesn't mention. She is number 70. according to Rashi and according to the Gemara. Okay? According to Rashi and the Gemara, Yocheved is number 70. But again, the question we're dealing with now is, we're missing one soul. To which Rashi answers, Yocheved fills in the 70th soul. The Rosh in Masechta Pesachim gives a different answer. Again, the question is, what do you mean 70? They're only 69. Says the Rosh. What's the problem? There were only 69. You want to know why the Torah says 70? The Torah always rounds off. The Torah always rounds off. Let me ask you a question. How many days of Sfiras HaOmer do we count? 29. Yeah, but the Torah says Tisru Chamishim Yom. You should count 50 days. Says the Rosh. Whenever you're off by one, the Torah rounds off to the closest number. How many lashes do we give? But the Torah says Arba'im Yakenu. You give 40. Says the Rosh, the Torah always rounds off. Here too, with the 70 souls, the Torah is rounding off. It's really 69. Tosfos and the Rashbam don't agree with this. They don't want to accept the fact that Yocheved is number 70. They don't want to accept the fact that the Torah is rounding off. So what do they say? You know who number 70 is? Yaakov Avinu himself. He's number 70. Yaakov Avinu himself is number 70.
Which is very logical, no?
Perhaps.
So he included the...
But the question is, where is he counted? Because we count Leah had 33 children, but you can only count 32. So basically what the Tosfos says is Yaakov is counted among Leah's children. Why? We get him in the first counting possible. But it's a little bit difficult. Okay.
I have trouble with the 5 and the not. They're really...
Yeah.
So that's why if you look at the Psukim, it says 66 came down. How many in total were there? 70 in total were there. Okay. The Iksav HaKabbalah says a different explanation. He wants to say that, take a look in Pasuk Chaf. Vayivale. Now, the Torah says explicitly we're not counting the wives of the Shvatim. Reuven's wife we're not counting. Shimon's wife we're not counting. Who was Yosef's wife?
It's not
Asnas.
Cohen Bat-On.
Who was Asnas? If you want to maintain, says the Iksav HaKabbalah, that when Dinah lived with Shechem, Dinah conceived and gave birth to Asnas. So it's true Asnas was Yosef's wife and she shouldn't be counted because she's one of the wives of the Shvatim. But she was also the she was also the daughter of Dinah. So Asnas could be counted. Because according to the Medrash, that Shechem and Dinah produced Asnas, Asnas was a grandchild of Yaakov.
Was Potiphar?
Potiphar raised her, perhaps. But her biological mother was Dinah.
So why she called the Potiphar?
Because Kal Magado Yasem B'tech Beisai Malal V'Kasav Kilu Yiladai.
Potiphar's wife, her name was Zuleika. That was her name.
Okay. The Torah offers another explanation. And that is, you know who the 70th soul was? That, he says like this. Dinah had a son from Shechem that nobody knows about, nobody knows who he is, nobody knows his name. The Torah allows him to remain nameless, and he's number 70. So let's try to put this together. Let's wrap it up.
Why did the Torah not say 69?
What?
Why did the Torah count them? He was anonymous. Why do we say 69?
He exists. We don't want to say his name because his father was not.
Why did the Torah say 69 came from Mitzrayim and doesn't exist?
No, because he was the 70th that came. But we don't say his name. So let's put this together.
You have 70 options.
1 second. We have a total of what? The Chumash says 69. The Chumash says 70. We're missing one. We have different options to get the 70th. But let's understand, how would the Vilna Gaon understand what the 70 souls are? The Vilna Gaon says what, Gabi? How many, whenever you have 70, you have 2 at the head. So basically we need to get 72. But the only thing is we have 69. So we'll count Yocheved as 70. That's like Rashi says. We'll count Yaakov like Tosas and the Rashbam says. We'll count Osnas like the Ksava Kabbalah, or we'll count, fine. So we have 72. Now who are the 2 heads? So if you remember from Shalosh Shudas this past week, we learned that even though Yaakov Avinu, he was an Av, and Yitzchak was an Av, and Avram was an Av, but Yosef HaTzadik also had the status of one of the Avos. So according to the Vilna Gaon, you could say that whenever you have the number 70, like he says, there are really 2 at the head. Who are the 2 at the head? Yaakov Avinu, Yosef HaTzadik. And then they were the 2 heads, and then under them you have the Shivim Nefashos. But this is another illustration of when you have the number 70, you have 2 at the klum, 2 at the heads. Let's end off with the following. And that is this book that I was referencing called Esos HaHadrachos. He basically wrote this sefer for yeshiva students, for religious Jews, and he's addressing the following question. And the question is, why are people so unhappy? He says, more than people that suffer from health problems, people in this generation suffer from mental anguish, which is much more acute and much more painful than physical ailment. That's a fact. Mental anguish is more. And why do people have so much mental anguish? So he brings down that what gives a person fulfillment is when things are doing what they could do and what they should do. People think, I'll be happy if I go on vacation. No, vacation adds no amount of happiness to your life. Pleasure adds. How does one have happiness? Happiness is when all the forces within a person are doing what they were created to do. And he brings down something that most human beings only utilize. Forget about, what they say about 5% of their brain power. 5% of their abilities, of their kochos. And people have to understand that, like we learned, Chazal could look into words that a person say, and they could say there's 70 different meanings in what this person means. Why? Because there's so many different forces going on within a person. All of these forces exist. People are not aware of them. People are not aware of how complex a human being is. But the truth is, there's so much depth and complexity to a human being. There's so much within us that is not utilized and not brought out and not developed. There's so much kochos. He brings down a story. There's a woman in Canada who she had a surgery. She woke up from the surgery, and the doctor said, "During your surgery, you were singing opera." Opera? Really? Opera? I never heard opera in my whole life. How could I possibly be singing opera? And then the doctor said, I don't know why you're singing that, but you were. So she thinks back, she remembers when she was a little girl, 50 years earlier, one time she was passing by the opera house and she heard opera. So what does that mean? That means a person has such a fine-tuned system and such a vast system that every little thing that you ever saw, heard, said, thought of, is stored within you. No kind of massive computer that is. Right?
Smell.
There's no computer smell, taste. It's all stored. You may not be able to access it, but it's all in there. What's within inside of us, the depth, the complexity, the storage, it's bottomless, it's endless. There's no end. There's no end. And the reason why there's no end is because what we have within us is a chilak of Hashem. God blew into us a part of Him. That means the greatness and the ability that lays within us is endless. There's no limit. It's endless. And this is something we have to be aware of when you deal with other people, when you listen to other people, when you deal with yourself. A person has to realize that a person's potential is really unlimited. A person's ability, a person's capacity, endless capacity. Endless capacity. And that's what we see from Rashi. Mi kamocha kapara. What was Yosef telling, what was Yehudah telling Yosef? Everything you could possibly think of. He's telling you, Rashi tells us 4 of the explanations. But there are many, many more. There are 66 others. And the Chavetz Chaim brings down a medrash that every pasuk in the Torah has 600,000 interpretations. 600,000. Which would mean? It's incredible. And that means a human being has the same amount of depth. The same amount of depth. So that's something we should think about, something to consider when you deal with other people, when you deal with yourself. And Be'ezus Hashem should give us the siyata d'shmaya to bring out all of the greatness and all the capacity that we're able to. Have a good night.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.